what can we do to ensure sort of a high level of public awareness of the changes coming through future reference? So in terms of those coastal marges in particular.
Two things we've done, I guess, since the interest in this consent came around. One is to engage more with the local board. We have a list of consents that we send to all local boards across the region, and they're based on the types of consents that those boards are interested in. Something that we've worked with Faye and the board on is these types of developments, to make sure that the local board are consulted when the consents are received, and that the local board input into the notification decision for all of those consents. The other thing we've done is to ensure that if and when we receive any application like this again, that it has proper senior management oversight. This consent was granted some 2 months into the new council, and now we're in a much better position to understand who should be looking at what. So if a consent of this type is received again, myself and my manager will be having further oversight of it.
Okay. What does that mean?
What does that mean? So I guess most consents are processed by an officer, a planning officer, and they would have oversight of the immediate team leader. So in this case, Anthony Yates. I manage Anthony and a range of other team leaders. I have oversight of some consents where they are of some consents are of community interest. So these types of consents would be overseen by me.
What would ring an alarm bell for you?
So any type of consent where the application is within the coastal protection yard, for example, would be a trigger.
Would that make it notifiable?
It was notifiable anyway. So
why did that happen?
Why didn't?
Yeah.
So it wasn't notified because the officer and the decision maker didn't believe it should be.
Why? Why? Give us a reason.
50 points of non-compliance on your watch, right? And you turned a blind eye. 50 points. 50 points of non-compliance.
Yeah.
First we heard was a digger there in the morning.
Yeah. So I don't think I've turned a blind eye to it.
But this is the first time we've had an opportunity to speak
Absolutely.
to you after the event.
Yeah, okay. So what I think is useful here is, so I'm asking, I've asked the officer to be here, and I've said I wanted senior law officer. So that's what we've got, and what we, one, we'll have some reflection on what actually happened, so that's what I'm asking him to give us. Secondly, I'm also asking for the officers, and this is for Faye and the local board's benefit also, what are the learnings and how do we go forward? Where might we do things better, try and engage the community better, recognising that one, there's community rights and also the private landowners' rights. So there's two lots of rights here. And so what I'd like here is, so let's just have the question and then let the officer have the opportunity to answer and show some respect.
What community rights were shown?
As part of this consent.
Yes.
So the community would certainly have had input into the district plan, both district plans that were developed, and they've set the framework.
In terms of this consent, as you said, not way back then.
Yep. So it was a non-notified consent, so the community weren't made aware of it.
So no community rights.
The community have the right to challenge the decision.
Yeah. When it's non-notified, we see that the only chance we have to challenge it is a judicial review in the High Court.
Yeah.
I think it shows a complete disrespect for the knowledge and the opinions of the community not to consult with them. And I've been involved for years with I've been a councillor and a town planning chairman in East Coast Bay City. And I've been involved for years with making oral and written submissions about district plans, consents and all that sort of thing. And it's my experience that the sort of knowledge that Mr. Brown was talking about that is needed before a consent is approved often comes from the local community. So by keeping the local community out of the picture, you're missing the sort of information that everyone seems to want.
And has come to light since. I agree, and I guess that's one of the reasons why we are engaging with the local board.
And I've never protested physically before. It's the first time in my life. I'm nearly 75. And for 40 years I've been making submissions, often with success, you know, as far as my whatever I put forward has been. And it's the first time I've been in a position where the only way I could make a point was to sit on the beach in the early morning. So in 40 years, to me, Len, it's not making Auckland the most livable city for me.
There you go. It's not a perfect duty so far, is it?
No.
And I know it's hard because I know that you knew nothing about this before the consent process, and I know that the local councillor, Mike Lee, there knew nothing about it before the process. So the people that we have elected to look after our concerns in our community are being left out of the picture, and you're going to pick up all the bad feeling from the community when it comes to the next election. And the people who are making these decisions are not going to be affected at all.
Oh, I'm just curious about one thing as to actually how this happened. I think it's too late now, the building is there. But the whole thing is within the 40 metre yard.
Yep.
This has never happened before. And why was it non-notifiable? How does this sort of thing happen?
Yeah, so it has happened before, that there are other consents of its type. It happened because the officer and the decision maker who made the assessment believed two things. One, that the environmental effects were less than minor.
It's ludicrous.
Well,
Yeah.
and they granted a consent on that basis. And that's how it happened.
Yeah. And the non-notifiable fitted in that too.
Yes.
I think you need a comparison. Graham Hart, you would think would have a lot of pull. Western Landscape, same thing. T-Fowl's also got a protection zone, so it's extra. But Graham Hart couldn't get within the 40 metre yards.
Apparently 6 people applied to build on that particular bit of land where the Holyoke development is now, and 6 people were told categorically it can never happen. Don't waste your money, don't waste your time. And then so they do.
So we see this as a predetermined process. The guy bought the land because he knew he was going to get the consent. How did that happen?
So the guy met with officers as a pre-application process. That happens quite frequently with consents. Provided an outline of his proposal, and the officers indicated that they had some concerns with certain elements of it. And it was up to him whether he took on those concerns and bought the site or not. We certainly didn't give him a firm answer before he bought the site.
Okay, yep.
This is from a letter that I wrote in the Gulf News, and I'd like to say the boathouse is a business venture with the sole aim of making Mr. Holyoke money. So it can't be construed as an emergency or an urgent project. So there's no valid reason whatsoever for the planner to use the developer's own high tide dependency, which was their choice to use prefabricated buildings, as a pretext to fast-track this application. Other applications have to wait a long time. I mean, isn't it unfair and questionable that Mr. Yates chose to queue jump and give high priority to a private individual's business interest? Yeah. Now that is very questionable.
Well, I mean that's an allegation, you know that.
But it is.
He wrote down fast track on the variation.
Yeah.
Yes. Why?
Only comment.
Fast track.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it could have been in the offing for a fair period of time. You know, it might have finally got through to a certain point where he could see no further reason for it not to proceed.
The original consent went through in 2 months. That's not a large period of time. Once again, without notification, although, even though the planners have talked about the sensitivity of the area and things like that, amenity values, recreation values.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it would be nice to hear from Nikki, who's driven this campaign from the outset. She's lived in the Bay for many years.
Well, I'm Nikki, and I'm one of the neighbours, and we thought we were so privileged and lucky to have that most beautiful piece of land that we bought you know, 10 minutes you wander down the track, like all the neighbours, we all wander down the track to this most iconic beach. Iconic. Historical, soil register, heritage, beautiful piece of Waiheke. Within the 40-metre coastal yard cuts back here. The only reason why this heritage, I think, has remained like this is because we've got these protection yards in place. Do you agree? Yes. Okay, so then how is it that we can phone New Zealand Historic Protection Trust, we contact our board, we contact Mike, who's been fabulous in supporting this, we contact Heather Harris, Roger Blakey, Doug Mackay, we contact all these people that are supposedly there as our spokespeople, because remember, non-notified means we're cut off from here down, we don't have a voice. Our local board couldn't help us, although I think you did try to go on meetings at different times, but not a lot of feedback came back to us, the community, and certainly not the neighbours. So these places that you think are there, these are heritage. You know, 170 years that homestead has been here. Well back off, you've seen it this morning. Well back away from
100 metres.
From 100 metres from the coastal area. You know, day trippers would come across, boating clubs. I noted in the pre-lodgement minutes, apparently this is never visited, this little beach. They forget about the neighbours that actually are very respectful and have built way back, coming down the track to enjoy this most beautiful space. It can't happen again, Len. These areas of protection, they should be the last places to go on our beautiful Gulf Islands. You know, they have to be the last places. Pardon?
How do the public come onto it?
Rothschild Terrace.
Rothschild Terrace.
So you can actually come down off the...
We've got it through our land, actually. We're trying to negotiate and have actually the last 3 years spoken with Gary Walton about can we get people down to this most iconic beach.
So my understanding is you're actually going to get public access way down
But there already
got
has
it.
been, there's been an easement there for probably 9 years.
Yeah, it just hasn't been developed.
That's
so the idea, so there is public access down the beach. And just in terms of the old Rothschild house, where does their land go up to?
On here, it's probably about here. That's riparian.
So you have no one has any access to that other land at all?
No, not there, below the high tide mark. Yeah. We come down from Oakhill Bay, which is to the north, around the coast at low tides, and that was open because the council didn't want to know, at a Theatres of Resistance meeting several months ago. That is a walk. I've been going through there for
Is that the Theatres of Resistance?
Yes.
That's not very good. What's that?
I'll invite you to the next one.
I've been going through there for over 30 years. When Gary Wilton got the job first on Waiheke, I spoke with him about a historic walk through here, and over the last couple of years I was pushing to get it to go ahead because we've got the historic well, which you can see there with the things on it.
So that's not been compromised, has it?
Yes, it has. They're not meant to be within 17 metres of that.
So what? We heard not very long ago, there was a noise out, another noise, out on, so Carl and I rushed out to the point. Look down, there is a tractor here on the reserve, which this has been fairly consistent all the way through that they've been using the reserve. Tractor here, and it was the ramming of strainer posts, not 1 foot. Now in the resource consent, Kim Lewis says very clearly, and I've been hammering on about this right from the word go, there's supposed to be no development within 17 metres of this very Category A historic brick-lined well. Well now, we've got a fence post right here, well you would have seen it this morning, cuts across to delineate from the development. This is now our beautiful handkerchief, which was referred to, and I guess what we need now is, you know, what happens?
Just a moment, Nikki, please.
So can you just go back to that original photo, the other one?
Yes.
So that grassland, it's actually private property, isn't it?
No.
No, that's reserved.
That's our asset, our reserve.
So,
Our asset.
well, but the house is
The house is there against
right
the
up
bank.
against, further back, isn't it?
Yeah, against the bank.
So it's basically 20 metres.
Yeah.
But there's a coast, there's the Esplanade Reserve,
Yeah.
and then there's the
That's right.
coastal protection yard behind it that says that there's not supposed to be building on. This house is completely...
Let's just deal with that issue of not supposed to be building on coastal. Can you give us a definition around that?
Yeah, so the building in the coastal yard is not prohibited. People need consent to do it, resource consent to do it as a discretionary activity.
Yep.
Obviously you can't build in the reserve. The coastal yard's 40 metres from the mean high water mark, so that's right back into the site. So it is within the coastal
It's
yard.
above the embankment.
Yeah. So it is in the coastal yard.
It's 20 metres within.
Yeah. He needs consent for it, but it's certainly not prohibited.
I thought the Acts said no building in the coastal protection yard. That's our understanding.
Excuse me, I'd just like to read out a short paragraph here that was sent to Kim Lewis by Martin Green. It is our understanding that the location of the building on the flat, thereby reducing its apparent bulk, while at the same time intruding into the required coastal yard, is a matter that the council would give favourable regard to as a trade-off for these design and location concessions. I rest my case. I rest my case.
I mean, you can see from here the respect that's given to this iconic bay by all the rest of the neighbours. This place here is owned by a dear old couple. They weren't allowed to put their drip lines into the 40-metre coastal protection yard for good reason. We're located up the back here. This is our other neighbours. We all wander, as good Kiwis are used to, down to this iconic beach to enjoy the facility of our public reserve. And that's highly, you know, it's I always think of discretionary as, you know, hey, it's a small section and we've got to maybe infringe by a couple of metres. But to give right of way for this building to be barged on because they couldn't get down the steep slope, you know, I mean, it just was never meant to happen like this. Now, I'm just a neighbour. Surely planners, with all your wealth of expertise, and all these councillors, I think there was 3 pre-lodgement meetings down there. What goes on that this can go ahead? I mean, that's not discretionary. These guys have got a hectare of property up the top here. There's a hectare of flat land. How does this occur? And of course, my biggest worry is the precedents now that's set.
Yes.